Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, everybody. Remember those old radio networks, Tim? That was fun. But anyways, how are you, Tim? Thanks for joining us, everybody. Another episode of Drop in the Gloves. I'm happy to have you. It's a fresh week. It feels good. March 11th. Everything going good in North Carolina, Tim? Is it 80 degrees yet over there?
Not quite. Tomorrow it's going to be. It's like 55, 60 right now. So it's sunny, it's warm. It's great. Oh, here's something. I actually
Oh,
forgot about this until right now. So we kind of almost got hit by a car again this weekend in the crosswalk. Now, remember,
oh yeah.
this was a recurring thing on the show like a couple years ago. It happened all the time. I've been pretty good for like 2 years. Setting the scene a little bit, we live on South Boulevard. It's like a major like inner city street, and it's cars both way, 4 lanes, and we're crossing from the far side where the neighborhoods where we walk the dog back to our street in a crosswalk with the right of way with the light with the signal, and a car coming behind us is trying to take a left into us, and he's trying to take a left on South Boulevard, and so Julia's next to me, and I got the dog too, and I see him on my peripheral and a lot of cars like just get right up to you, which
Yeah.
drives me nuts. Like give a lot of room, to a pedestrian, especially on a busy street like that. So like, I'm kind of annoyed. I see him coming, and then he just keeps coming, and he gets closer, and I just shouted out Julia's name, and she screams, and the car slammed right into us, and it hit her like her hand because she stuck her hand out and jumped back, and that's the part. So it didn't like hit her body and collide with her, but there's contact, and then we start yelling and the dog's flipping out. He's not a barker. He's like a very calm, I love everyone, but he's barking at the truck. And the guy doesn't even roll his window down. He says sorry and waves, and he's in a big white pickup truck, huge, big grill. And we're just like yelling at him. And we're still in the middle of the street because I don't want to walk anywhere, even though there's cars everywhere. Because I'm like, Julia, are you okay? You okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. Let's go. Let's go. And I was like, well, hold on. Are you really okay? Like, are you sure? And she said she was. And then the car just took off. It just drove away.
Wow.
I grabbed mentally his license plate. We wrote it down when we got back to the house. And a couple people like pulled over and were like, hey, are you guys okay? And we're like, yeah. And it was freaky. It was one of like 15 minutes later, it hit in because your adrenaline's just running so much. So anyway, no one's hurt. The dog's fine. We're all fine. But it was scary. And this is like, I've said before that Charlotte has the worst drivers in the country. And it's totally true. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he was distracted or what, but it was scary.
Yeah. Was it a full-on green Walkman? Let's just break down this. Or was it a
Yes.
flashing, like, counting down?
I mean, but it's 4 lanes. So
It's a long walk, yeah.
yeah. So it's probably like in the last 10 seconds, maybe as by the time we get to the other side. But yeah, we had the right of way, and there was
Wow.
cars going, across the street, but he's taking the left right into us. And yeah, I almost told Julia, I was like, hey, do you want to still call this in? Because if nothing
Yeah.
else, like even if we don't press charges, just tell the police what happened and have them give him a call and just scare him, and just say, hey, listen, they're not pressing charges, but you can't do X, Y, Z, and just maybe he'll be carefuler next time, but I don't think he will.
I think you should, even just to have it on record, because you don't know. Maybe this guy has priors, or if Julia develops, and I know her
Yeah.
hand didn't hit the hood, but just say next week she's like, man, my wrist hurts. Then it's documented. It's not after the fact, and she can go back and say, hey, like, my, let's get this guy to pay for my medical bills or something. I don't know, but it's good to
It's
have it
true.
documented.
I know. We probably should have, but no one was hurt, and there wasn't really an incident. So yeah, crazy. And the first thing I thought was, oh, I got to tell John about this on the show because we used to
You're
talk
a
about this stuff all
magnet.
the time.
You
Yeah.
got hit by two guys a couple years ago, like in subsequent weeks.
One of them was a scooter. The other was a
Still,
car. Yeah. Yeah.
that's crazy. I guess I never walk anymore unless it's
Yeah.
like on my property. I don't walk city streets. Dangerous out there. People are on their phones. That's the issue.
It is.
No one's present. When I'm driving, just because I do these long drives for talks and stuff, I put a movie on my phone and I just watch the movie and I put it on cruise control and that's all I do. So I'm not paying attention. I'm going 75 and watching a
Yeah.
movie. So
I remember like 10 years, some kid told me that he watches The Office when he drives back from college to Michigan. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that scares the crap out of me. Now it's something like everyone does. People just
it's just
watch
so
stuff.
common. Yeah, I think it makes you a better driver if you're just kind of watching a show. It really does. That's
So
crazy, Tim. I was trying to think of like a funny thing to say, but that's kind of scary. getting hit
It
by a
was
big truck.
scary. It was a big truck, and it just didn't stop until the very last second. So anyway, yeah. How are you? How was your weekend? You coming
I'm
in hot
good.
on anything?
Everything's good. The house is moving along. They got cabinets up. The floors are all in. We've had to have the flooring people come back. It's always an uncomfortable conversation to say, "Hey, you messed up your job. Can you come back and redo it?" But that's kind of what we're having now. And of course, we're over budget. People don't like when I talk about this. I get the vitriol of people in the comment section just saying, I don't care about your life. Talk about hockey. I like talking about my life, so I'm going to do it. So the house is almost done. End of April. We're slated to move in, so it's very, very exciting. I'm getting my appliances delivered today. Third time's a charm, maybe. They came twice like last week, Tim, and the driver. I don't like your driveway. I'm not going to go up, but I'm nervous I'm going to get stuck. I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, box trucks have been going it up all day, all week. We've had trim delivery. We've had wood delivery. We've had cabinets being delivered. It makes me nervous. So he's coming today. I'm getting my baseboard heat for my kids upstairs. That's exciting. I'm going to get that hooked up to the boiler. And then, it's just fun. I literally, my kids make fun of me. I will go there, Tim, and just stare at my boiler for like large swaths of time, like 20 minutes, half an hour. I'll just sit there and just watch the numbers increase on the side because they have a little electronic panel, like the temperature. They have an exhaust temperature and then a water temperature. And I'll just watch it. I'm like, the exhaust temperature's at, 320, 380. The water temperature's at 160. And I enjoy it. I think it's so fun. I don't know. And then I
But
smell like smoke.
people like bird watching, right? Or just
Yeah,
just sitting and waiting for something to happen. So that's your version of that.
it is. And speaking of birds, it's hummingbird season. And I'm getting my feeder up. Last year we had a bad year. I think I made a bad batch of what do you call it, like little juice for them. So we're going to get that fired up. I know people were asking about my hummingbirds. It's been a slow year, but we're going to get that fired up. And then the chickens are doing well. They are finally outside now because the snow melted. So they're just like a kid in a candy store. The gates are open. It's like kids at summer break. They bust out of their coop and they're just like, yeah, let's party. So they're all in their coop having a good time. And life is good. All right, let's move on to hockey. I agree. It's time to go. Let's recap the trade deadline, Tim. But first I want to just talk about this Bleacher Report. For those of you who are friends of the show and our Patreon, we talked to you guys quite a bit about the Bleacher Report, about Tim and this and that. Tim shows up to the Bleacher Report recording. And I kid you not, because we do this on Riverside, which is a higher end Zoom, better audio quality, better video, whatever. He's got the stupidest beanie on his head. And I'm not critical of how Tim looks because I know he's handsome. He's a good looking guy. He's got a great head of hair. He looked the stupidest I've ever seen someone look in my whole entire life. And I don't make him change anything about him. I kid you not, everybody. I said, get that hat off of your head. You're not going to show up like this. It was one of those hipster beanie hats that sit back on your head and like flops over the back and like you can still see hair in the front. And he thought he was so cool. And I feel like I ruined his day a little bit because he's like, I just got it. And I put the hammer on. I said, you're not wearing that. That is not going to happen today on Bleacher Report. It's not happening on our show. It's ugly. Get rid of it. And credit to Tim, he got rid of it. So I was very happy. But I just wanted to get that out there. What were you thinking wearing that hat?
I had just gotten it. One of the brands I like had like a winter blowout sale because it's getting out of season. I was like, I don't really have any good beanies. I'll grab a couple. They were like $10 each or something. And I thought they were great. And I had just come in from outside because I took the dog out and I was like, oh, whatever. I don't care. I wasn't a big fashion statement, but John was like, hey, listen, I'm not joking. Take it off. Like I'm not messing around. Like we're going live in 2 minutes. Take it off right now and go get a hat. So I did. Yeah. I forgot about that until now too, but hey, we're nothing if not honest with each other.
I know. And I appreciated you took it off because that would have ruined my stream. It would have been awful. And the Bleacher Report thing's fun, but I value your looks more than anything. And you should post a picture or something in Patreon or for the friends of the show. It was so bad. Like, it was just like, what are we doing here? Are you like a hipster now? Are you going to slam poetry? Are you going to go to the coffee shop and like think about, you might, I don't know.
I wish I had the hat within reach because I would put it on right now.
Burn it. Send it back. Nobody wants it. Throw it in the garbage. All right, let's get to the trade deadline. Some things that stuck out in me, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but before the show, I was fired up about a few teams that didn't make any moves, and we'll get to that in a second. But what I want to ask Tim is a few questions, because the Eastern Conference is a very strange conference these days, where there's a surprising leader in the Washington Capitals. The old blood is maybe dying away, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Boston Bruins. New blood is coming in, but it seems that nobody really made any moves in the Eastern Conference, and it would seem like the top guys. I know the Panthers and the Lightning did. It seems like if you're in a position to go for a Stanley Cup and you've been having this charmed season, everything worked out in the offseason, you bring in Matt Roy, you bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois, your goaltenders are playing great, the fountain of youth for Alex Ovechkin, everything's going good for the Washington Capitals. You have this opportunity to just take advantage of that. And you do nothing, Tim. Absolutely nothing at the deadline. In your eyes, did the Washington Capitals blow this? Because when you look around their conference, other teams were making moves. Not as big as the Western Conference, and we'll get into that, but Florida gets Seth Jones and Brad Marchand. Toronto gets Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton. Tampa got Gord and Bjorkstrand. You did nothing. You get Anthony Beauvillier, who's going to be your fourth-line winger for a second rounder, and that's it. So do you think the Capitals made the right decision in standing pat in their lineup?
I'll say yes, and there's a couple of reasons why. First, there's no glaring weaknesses in their lineup. They've been healthy all year, minus the Oshis and Backstroms of the world. They have their guys. They have two great goaltending. They have 6-7 solid defensemen. Their offense has been going great. Dubois playing great. Strom's playing great. Obviously, Ovi's playing great. And then you think about the seller's deadline, where the stuff was going for way more value than it should have. It was really expensive to add some rentals, and I don't know how many rentals were out there that made your team a whole lot better compared to what it cost to get them. So, yeah, like if you know you're not going in huge with like a Seth Jones or Rantanen or whatever, I think I'm fine with them standing pat.
But wouldn't it have been prudent to go out and get some depth pieces? Like, you don't have to swing for the fences. But there were deals to be made for some decent depth pieces to come in, even just getting, like, trying to get a Luke Kunin or trying to get a Casey Middlestead or trying to get some secondary guys to help your roster, a third line center or some, depth defensive help. Those options were out there. I just don't know why they didn't do anything. When you see these other teams, especially in your division, going out and making moves and trying to get better and trying to improve your weaknesses. The Panthers, the Leafs, the Lightning, I guess the Hurricanes and Devils didn't do anything. But to me, I think you're doing your team a disservice. I guess it does, like you said, it instills faith that your team is good. We have confidence in you guys that we don't need to add anything. But as a player, if I'm sitting there, and this goes for a few other teams, if I'm Dylan Strome or Tom Wilson, why aren't we in the mix? Why aren't we making a play for some of these guys? We have some cap space. We have our draft picks. We have the ability to add people. Why aren't we? What's going on? We're getting a lot of money off the books next year. Mangiapane's off the books. Oshie, Backstrom, Lars Eller. We have plenty to spend next year. Why can't we get better? So I don't know. I thought they really missed the boat. I disagree with you. I think they should have added something to reward them for this season, because that's what the deadline's all about. It kind of sets you up for the playoff push, that big run. And you don't need to go out and swing for the fences, but add something. I don't understand. That gets me to my next question, Tim. Are all the GMs in the NHL listening to our podcast? Because I feel like they are. I feel like all the bubble teams tuned in for the last couple of weeks because they did exactly what I said they should do, except for the Detroit Red Wings. We'll get to that in a second as well. But they just stood pat. They didn't overreach. They didn't go out and try to make chicken salad out of chicken, you-know-what. Teams just, they read the standings, they understood where they were, and they said, we're not winning the Stanley Cup this year. And that's why it seemed like the rich got richer and the middle class just kind of stayed the same. Teams like the Rangers, the Canadiens, the Blue Jackets, the Sens did a 1-for-1 swap, which is kind of a lateral movement, but the Flames, the Kings, the Canucks, the Utah Hockey Club, for the most part, Tim, they just did nothing. Maybe some secondary pieces here and there, but as a whole, none of them made a push. Do you agree with all those teams, minus Detroit, in my opinion, not doing anything? The Rangers especially, they could have maybe added to their team. What did you think of them just seriously just sitting on their hands the whole deadline.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing, and it's why you saw the deadline play out the way it did. So again, it goes back to this year was a seller's market, and sometimes that changes. Sometimes it's a buyer's market where you can get some great pieces for not too much, but it being a seller's market, and a lot of teams were selling, where like and in the East, for example, like the serious contenders, there's 3 or 4 of them,
Yeah.
right? And it's not like completely wide open because as much as it was like a month ago, because teams that we thought were going to be in the hunt have fallen out of it, and the teams that we're at the top of the standings have gotten even better. So I'm okay with that. Realistically, if you're Columbus, New York is the one that, like, again, we feel like on paper they should be among this list and they're not. But I'm glad that they didn't look at this and say, hey, let's add something, let's sacrifice the future, let's mortgage a piece to go get something that's going to walk anyway, just to say that we did something at the deadline. I think if you're realistic, like you said, we're not winning the cup, so I'm good with that. I think it's a good thing.
And my favorite GM, Steve Yzerman, Um, made one of could we say the dumbest moves ever in the history of hockey?
Strangest, for sure.
This the strangest, just head scratching move for this guy. He's coming in, into this push for the playoffs. They've lost a few games in a row. They have this veteran laden lineup. They also have some good young pieces. I made the case that they should push. They should go. They should try to add pieces and make the playoffs. No, they didn't do anything. But what they did do, they traded a veteran kind of suitcase type forward in Joe Veleno, up and down, AHL, NHL type guy to the Chicago Blackhawks, for Peter Mrazek and Craig Smith, a goaltender and a fourth line guy. And this is what I was talking to Tim before we came on, and this is what gets me hot and bothered, because I live in Michigan. Everyone's passionate about the Red Wings here. Tim, you've lived here. You know how everyone feels about this team. We're going to have Darren McCarty on the show this week. And I especially picked him because he played with Yzerman for over a decade. And I'm going to ask him point blank, what the hell is going on in Detroit? Why is he doing what he's doing? Because that trade, it angers me. It does anger me. I want to scream at him. I want to shake him. Why make this trade? And I was asking Tim earlier, make this make sense to me. You have Cam Talbot, you have Alex Lyon. Been playing okay. Cam Talbot's been playing great. Why bring in a 33-year-old goalie who had a great year last year but has struggled this year, who makes $4.25 for one more year? So he doesn't make your team better. He won't be the starter. And you're not letting any young kids get experience in playing the NHL. And then you bring in Craig Smith, who's 35, and he's not going to be on the team next year. And he's taking up a roster spot that a young kid could have and get experience, because you've lost 6 in a row. You're a streaky team. You're not making the playoffs anymore after that lackluster deadline. In all honesty, if there's Red Wings fans out there or anybody who is smart at hockey, how the hell does this make sense? Because it angers me to the core. If you're the GM, you're supposed to make your team better. You're supposed to try to put pieces in place to succeed and win games. How does getting Peter Mrazek and Craig Smith make that happen? And you're giving up Joey Veleno, whoever the hell that is. Like it just seems bizarre to me that at the deadline, Steve Yzerman, you have the big board, you have your preparation, all the brain trust is around you, Kirk Maltby, Nicholas Lidstrom, Yuri Fisher, they're all there. What's our game plan, boys? What are we going to do? Oh, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. And they get their heads together, all those idiots, they're not idiots, they're nice guys, all those geniuses, and they go, Peter Mrazek. Peter Mrazek is the guy. It's like, okay, that's the guy that we're gonna go after. Are you sure? Yeah, man. He's the difference maker. Are we gonna play him? Backup. He's gonna be a backup. It's gonna be genius. Tim, I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, when it came in, it was a head scratcher, and the only thing we thought was, okay, this is obviously setting up for something else. So they're shipping off a Cam Talbot to go get another guy in your top 6, or a fourth defenseman or something, and then they didn't. So I don't know if the plan was to do that and then nothing else materialized. I kind of hope that's the case, because at least that would make sense. And it just came down to like not being able to get a second deal done. But I don't think it was. I don't. So, and especially since like Alex Lyon is the third goalie in this scenario, more than likely, because otherwise, why bring
Yeah,
him in? But he's got the best stats of the three. I know he's played the fewest games, but he's played 22. So it's not like he's only played 5 games and he has a
it's a
better
good
save
sample
percentage.
size. Yeah,
So who? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, especially you consider his age and the fact that it's not like the stakes were so high this season where they had one more window to like, hey, let's not risk anything. Let's bring another goalie in just as another piece of insurance. There's nothing to. So by the way, they've lost 6 games in a row. Now it was at what 5 at the deadline or 4 at the time or whatever. So it's not like we knew this exactly was going to happen, but they're sliding out. They were in a playoff spot less than 10
yeah.
days ago, and now they're 11th in the East. And I know that it's still a tight race, but at what point do you think it's not on the players? Is it on the coach? Is it the system? Is it the team?
Well,
Man,
it's
like
the
I don't
team
know.
now. Yeah, I don't know. That game last night versus Ottawa was a heck of a game.
That was
That
a
that
great
was a
game.
knockdown, drag out game. I think Olmark had 40 some saves. They were trying their best, but the Senators played great. In front of the show, new addition to the Senators, the White Horse Workhorse scores the game winner. So it's not for lack of trying, but we got to get Mo Sider on the show again. It's like get his take on this because he's been there for 4 years now, and he can't be happy. He's playing with
6. Well, yeah.
Ben Sherrod. Woof. All right, moving on, Tim. We talked to the Detroit Red Wings. Now this is one. This could get a little emotional. The Boston Bruins. I think Don Sweeney did a great job. Tim's taking off his hat like a memorial,
My Red
talking
Sox
about the
hat.
Boston Bruins. What's your take on this? They get rid of Carlo, they get rid of Marchand, they get rid of Charlie Coyle. They made a lot of moves that I applaud Don Sweeney for. As a Bruins faithful guy, good deadline or bad deadline?
Good deadline. Bad deadline in terms of just emotions. These are guys, 3 of the longest tenured Bruins, Marchand by a lot. This is your
Yeah.
captain. These are guy who wears the A. These are serious cultural locker room leaders among that group. So this is the big hole that you're filling, not unlike the one 2 seasons ago when you're losing, Bergeron and Krejci and all these other guys. So yeah, it stings. And for Bruins fans that are frustrated by the lack of return or that we traded them to our rivals, the biggest rivals in the league and the Panthers and the Leafs, I totally get
Yeah.
that too. But I think this is a good deadline. You got younger, you got a little bit faster, you freed up roster space. You got solid returns, including some that are under control in Casey Middlestat. Getting a first for Brandon Carlo. And so, like, this is great. Brad Marchand's return is going to turn out to be a first,
It'll
more
be a
than
first.
likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's conditional second into a first. It's going to be a first, low end first. That's okay. We haven't had a lot of firsts. We haven't had a lot of luck with them. So the more, the better. And yeah, I think this is a good thing. Now, the one part that's coming out about this that I think Bruins fans are particularly frustrated by is the maybe perceived lack of respect to Marchand because he wanted to stay. And they reportedly offered him a 3-year deal. He also wanted to be here for 3 years. They had their number. He had his. They would not meet in the middle. And Brad was willing to negotiate, but the Bruins weren't. It was Sweeney and Neely's line in the sand said, "This is our number." I think it was around 6, about something what he's been making now. He was not asked for a pay decrease, which I think is important. And apparently, the report came out this morning that Marchand actually called an in-person meeting. I don't know if it was with Sweeney or Neely or both, or ownership, but he said, "Hey, I want to be here. I want to get this deal done. How can we make it happen?" And the Bruins still did not budge an inch, which I think he was hurt by and frustrated by. And so when you look at his comments about it being a business, that's kind of the stuff that he was probably thinking about and talking about. So there's a lot of people that feel that they let him down, that they didn't, you have a chance to lock this up, make him retire a Bruin, keep him in our system forever. And they feel slighted by that. But I think it's really important to note that you're a franchise that's kind of been stuck in no man's land. I don't see why it's a good thing to sign a 3-year extension to a guy that turns 37 in 2 months, even if it's Brad Marchand. I love him. I respect him. I wish he was a Bruin for life. I'm glad that they moved on. I think it's a good time to do this. I don't like the way it's handled, as is often the case with this management group, but I think the fact that you did this and you got the returns that you did, I think this is a good deadline for the Bruins, and it'll get us where we need to be even quicker, even though there's going to be some pain in the future.
Gosh, remind me not to put you on my end of life plans. Just like pull the plug immediately, Tim. That's ruthless of you. I feel like you have to do good by the player. And the most recent example is an Alex Ovechkin. 4 years ago, he was coming off one of his worst seasons. Everybody was wondering what he was going to do, and the team re-upped him. 5 years, $9.5 million, ending next year. It was a good faith contract. You've served us well. And look what he's done. He's rewarded them the very next year. He had 50 goals, 42 the year after, 31. He's going to probably have 40 this year. And you just throw away Brad Marchand. Just like that. How dare you? I'm just kidding. I think it's a good move by Boston. I think it's smart business. I know it stinks to lose your captain, to lose your heartbeat, the guy who bleeds Bruins gold and black. Like, he was a Boston guy through and through. He's perfect for that team. He's got the personality, but you have to look at the future. He's not going to be a guy you build around. It's Pasternak, it's McAvoy, it's Swayman. You have some pieces to be better. Next year, you rid yourself of contracts and just distractions. Because I know he's not, a Tim Tebow type player where he doesn't do anything, but you still owe him a lot if he's on your roster. You feel like you have to put him on the power play. You feel like he has to be on the first or second line, even if he is losing a step. You got Middlestead. You have some good pieces. I really like that Morgan Geekie. I don't know why, but the Bruins will be better for this. But moving on, it was nice to see Don Sweeney just admit when they're done instead of pushing for it and trying to get the most out of all these guys. Pasternak's probably not happy, but it's good for the Boston Bruins. All right, let's move to the West. We're spending a lot of time on this. We got to get going here. The Winnipeg Jets, much like the Detroit Red Wings, did not do anything. And the Washington Capitals. It's actually strange that the top two teams in each conference didn't do much. And I called this at the outset. You look at GMs who are active. You look at GMs who don't value first-round picks, the Tampa Bay Lightnings of the world, the Florida Panthers of the world, usually teams that have banners in the rafters, don't value first-round picks. Then you look at other teams who do value those first-round picks. Not so much. They don't have many banners on the walls. The Winnipeg Jets, having a great season. Best team in the Western Conference. Connor Hellebuyck, Vezina-type goalie again. They re-signed Scheifele. The trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois has set them up. Velarde's playing great. They have good pieces up and down the lineup. This is a very, very good team. Kyle Connor, Nick Ehlers is always terrific. They had the opportunity to make a move here. They have the assets. They have the cap space. They have the team to win a Stanley Cup. And Kevin Cheveldayoff, doing what Kevin Cheveldayoff does, traded for a fourth-line winger in Brandon Tanev and an extra D-man in Luke Schenn. And he even overpaid for them, giving up 2 seconds and a fourth. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it angers me, but again, if I'm Mark Scheifele and I re-signed and I had the assurance of the GM and the owner and everybody that we're gonna keep building for a championship, and I have this opportunity to win a Stanley Cup, like, we are the best team in the Western Conference. We're playing great hockey. Everything's going good. We're 10 points ahead of the next closest team. That's how good we are. And you had nobody, absolutely nobody. What? And then you sit there and you're watching the TV and you go, okay, well, maybe nobody else is going to do anything. Oh, the Dallas Stars, they just got Rantanen. Oh, well, that ain't good. I guess that's really bad. Oh, the Avalanche, they're in our division too. They get Nietzsche, obviously, in the Rantanen trade. Then they got Brock Nelson. Oh, they got Charlie Coyle and Jimmy Vesey. Oh, they got Ryan Lindgren. Oh, they got Eric Johnson. Oh, not to mention they shored up their goaltending and Mackenzie Blackwood. That's going to sting, right, Tim? You think that irks him a little bit? Because he's with that GM his whole career. Like, Chevy's been there for over a decade. The guy does nothing. Only first rounder he's traded was for Sean Monahan last year. That's it. Like, it's embarrassing that this guy doesn't try to make this team better.
Yeah, the Jets are typically that team, and like you said, and if you're them, you're probably thinking, listen, we're already there. We think we're the best team in the league. We have the best goalie in the world right now. We have three guys well over hovering around the point per game mark, and Velarde's right below it. You have, a top 5, top 10 defenseman. They probably think it's a top 5, but they're biased in Josh Morrissey. So, like, you feel like you have all the pieces there, and you don't know what anyone else is going to do, but you go out and bring in a couple of guys that are very good in limited roles, very well liked respected by their teammates, and Schenn and Tanev. Great culture of guys, and so you think, okay, that's the kind of guys that you want to bring with you on a long playoff run, which is great. But I agree. You have the cap space. You should go out and be getting, like, I hope they at least called on like the Bessers of the world or some of the other guys that like middle six scoring guys that will help contribute. Especially, yeah, I'm confused by that as well.
It's annoying, and I get it. Like they had a run, Tim, in I think 4 or 5 straight years where their first rounders are all stars on this team. Scheifele, Trouba was there, Morrissey, Ehlers, who else? Kyle Connor, Patrick Laine. They had a run of like solid drafting where they were impactful players. So I get why they want to keep their first rounders, but it's not happening anymore. Like you were constantly in the top round or a top tier of the team, so your draft picks are usually in the 20s. All those guys were top 10. And it's not happening anymore. So when you look at their first rounders for the last 10 years, Ville Heinola, Chad Lucius, Rutger McGrody, we know how that worked out, Colby Barlow, it's not guys who are on your team or making differences. So you have to adjust to where your team's at. And I just don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff has done that. And they don't have any banners in the rafters to show for it because they've had great teams, Tim. Great teams. All right, moving on to your city. What is Rod Brindamore saying about Mikko Rantanen? That's actually very, very funny to me.
It is, yeah. So I think most people are aware of the Rantanen saga and some of the stuff that came out after the deadline, including that he thought, or him and his agent basically mishandled this thing from the beginning. I won't dig it all the way through. What they thought they were calling Colorado's bluff by not being willing to negotiate, and turns out Colorado wasn't bluffing. So I think he probably was blindsided about the trade to Carolina, but it was his own doing. And then here's what, why wouldn't he sign with Carolina? What's his number? Why would they even trade him? Even the head coach, Ron Brindamore, was on a radio show the other day, and he said, quote, "There's not been one guy that has left here because they didn't like it here. That was Mikko, and he did not like it. When he showed up, he said, 'There's 4 teams I'll go play for, but you're not one of them.'" And he even referenced like how Gensel, loved playing here and fit in right away. And he, can't control everything. He left. And a lot of the other guys that have come through that, bought into the system right away. But Rantanen big league them, said, "I don't want to be here. I never intended to be here. I am not going to sign here. I have no intention of playing hard for you." And the fans that we know saw him coast. It wasn't just that he wasn't getting the bounces and that's why he wasn't producing or he didn't find chemistry. He mailed it in for what ended up being 8 games or 11 games or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, is it the governor or senator? Like, I think the governor of North Carolina came out and was like, he was like, "Yeah, if that's all you're going to get, then I'm glad we got rid of him." Like, if that 11 game sample size was enough to say that's what we're going to get in the playoffs, I'm glad he's not here. So it's weird how a guy can just become public enemy number 1 so quickly in really 2 different franchises now in Colorado and Carolina.
Well, Colorado, I think they pivoted quite well. I don't think Carolina recovers from this because, listen, and we got some people on our Patreon, Nate and AC. It was so funny going back and forth with them. They were adamant, "We're not trading Rantanen. All this is just noise. There's nothing to all these rumors." And lo and behold, they got traded. And they've been awful quiet since this trade. But you gotta applaud Rantanen. He didn't go in and lie to Brindamore. He didn't go in and try to, disillusion him or Eric Tulsky into saying, "Yeah, I want to be here, say the right things," and then you leave in the offseason for nothing. He was very honest and frank. "I don't want to be here. That's it. I have no plans of being here long term. That's it." And so he gave them the opportunity to trade him and get some assets. So you have to applaud that. That's hard for a player to do. And to do it to a Rod Brindamore, a guy who's so serious. It's scary. I don't know. Do you see anything to like from that, Tim, or you just think it's him being like a snotty little brat?
I was just thinking while you were talking, I mean, it comes across as a jerk, but I think it is generally a good thing when people speak their mind. Yes. He's not singling out like any specific reason. He's not trying to piss people off or hurt their feelings. He's just telling the truth. Listen, hey, and the conversation probably went, "This is a great team. I'm rooting for you guys, but this is not part of my future, and so I'm just telling you the truth, and I want to move on to the teams that he originally intended, which was Dallas and maybe I forget who the other team was." So it's just like it's someone speaking his mind, speaking the truth, and I think generally the world would be better off for it. But when it happens, it feels jarring because no one does it. So yeah, I guess it comes across as a jerk though.
And for those of you saying, "Well, they didn't know he didn't want to be there," that's Tulsky's fault. oh, it's tampering. You can't, talk long-term contracts with a player who's not on your current roster, who's on another team. Yeah, but you do. And everybody does it. You're negotiating with the other GM. You have every agent's phone number. You call him and you go, hey, we're trying to get Mikko. Would he want to do long-term contract with us? That's it. And if the answer is no, you don't deal for him. Much like I think the LA Kings did. And that's how that saga went. I know it's tampering. I know it, but it's a common practice, Tim.
The Dallas deal didn't go through until it happened. So why didn't
Yeah.
Carolina do that?
I think Dallas made it a prerequisite, and they said, we're not going to do it. So you have to have permission to talk to the player. And I don't know why Carolina didn't do that. But that's what they're falling back on, right? I see all these reports. We weren't allowed to. We couldn't do it. Yeah, you could. You're just trying to save face and say, oh, well, it's against the rules. It's tampering, this and that and the other. It's common practice. Before this trade goes through, we want some assurance that he will sign long-term because we're investing a lot in this guy and we're giving up a lot. Big fail from the Carolina Hurricanes. Massive fail. Do you see them, Tim? I know we're going to go back to the standings, but as it stands right now, they're second place in the Metro. The Devils didn't do anything. They're firmly in the playoffs. Do you see them making any noise in the playoffs whatsoever? Like, is this a team that's going to be dangerous? Because on paper, they look atrocious. The Blue Jackets aren't going to catch them. They're firmly in that second spot, and the first-round matchup will be them versus the Devils, which could be the most depressing first round ever. But what do you think? Is there any chance of them making some noise?
I would say I like their chances against the Devils. I think that one, I mean, I probably pick them, but that's probably, it's close to a toss-up. The Jack Hughes thing really tilts the scale. So I probably like them versus the Devils, but no, they don't get out of the second round. They're not going to be able to get past the Florida or Tampa or Toronto, whoever that team turns out to be.
Even Washington.
Maybe the Capitals. It just depends on how everything shakes down. But no, I don't think they're not a cup contender the way they're built right now. I think all things considered, getting out of the Rantanen situation with a first and Stankoven was pretty good. But no, they're not going to – it's not happening this year.
I agree. Good answer. All right, moving on. The Vancouver Canucks coming into this deadline. Going to be active. We're going to get in there. We're going to make some noise. We're going to make this team better. We're going to blow it up. You know what? Let's just not do anything. They put their phones away and they didn't make any trades. And they said we're gonna sit this one out. But wait! You got Brock Besser. He's going to be UFA. Wouldn't you want to trade him and get something for him? No, we don't want to trade him. We're going to ask a lot for this guy, and if we don't get it, we're just going to hold on to him. But what if he leaves in the offseason? He's going to be our rental. You're not even in the playoffs. But no, we're gonna hold on to him. That's what Patrick Allvin did. And good, bad, or otherwise, he didn't want to get rid of him. He had his value at a certain point. He wanted a first rounder, according to Elliot Friedman, and I don't blame him. For the prices that were being paid, the guy deserves to be a first rounder in a swap, but first rounders are being thrown around like crazy. The Leafs gave up one for Carlo, Marchand got one, Rantanen got two, Scott Lawton got one, Jake Wallman got one, Brock Nelson, Bjorkstrand Gord, Seth Jones, CC Granlund. Those are all first-round picks. Brock Besser's a hell of a player. He's a young guy who you can re-sign. He didn't get a first round. Why do you think that happened, Tim?
Yeah, I don't really bash Vancouver for this. I think it's more a statement on what the rest of the GMs think about Besser. Partly because he's obviously a pending free agent, so it's going to be 100% a rental. He's going to want to go be a Kessel type and just try to be the biggest player in the market, and all of a sudden he's not, because he's kind of a one-dimensional guy. If he's not scoring goals, what else is he doing, right? And you can't count on him to be a consistent goal scorer because he's been very streaky. We talked about this, 18 goals a couple of seasons ago, 40 last year, on pace for under 30 this year. You just don't know what version you're going to get from him at any given point. And he's played with elite players. Like, most of his ice time in the last few seasons was either with Miller or Pettersson. So like he's getting his opportunities. He's getting a playmaker on the middle. So I think he's just too streaky, and he's such a weird, specific player that makes him really valuable in some ways and really invaluable in others. And GMs just weren't willing to pay the price.
I agree. Do you think he stays with Vancouver?
No,
long term?
I think someone's going to overpay for him and give him probably more than he's worth, but he'll go to, maybe that's the best, like Utah can do, for example. They want to make a splash. The most they can do is bring in a Besser and pay him 7.5 by 8 years or something. Yeah, I don't know.
No, he's going to go to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Calling it here first. They got some space. They need a goal scorer to play alongside Rossi and Kaprizov on the other side. He'd be great there. All right, moving on. Let's get into Aaron Ekblad. He's been
Yeah.
hanging out with Alex Ovechkin, and he has been suspended. Unrelated, completely unrelated, but they're very close. He was suspended, Tim, 20 games without pay for violating the terms of the NHL NHLPA Performance Enhancing Substance Program. He was taking dope. He's out with an injury. He's trying to get back. Someone gave him a needle, and he jabbed it into his leg without even asking. He said, "Sure, this sounds good." Bam! Right in the leg. And all of a sudden, he got super strong. So the standard quote from Aaron Ekblad, he said, "The news that I had failed a drug test was a shock." Continuing the quote, Ekblad said, "Ultimately, I made a mistake by taking something to help me recover from recent injuries without first checking with proper medical and team personnel. I have let my teammates, the Panthers organization, and our great fans down. For that, I am truly sorry. I have accepted responsibility for my mistake and will be fully prepared to return to my team when my suspension is over. I have learned a hard lesson and cannot wait to be back with my teammates." Let me just comment on this. I played in the NHL. I got random drug tested. I got just regular drug testing. Ekblad's been in the league for a long time. He knows how strict it is. He knows when you get tested. It's not even the random ones, they give you a heads up. It's like, "Hey, I'm coming tomorrow." So this isn't out of the ordinary. He knows how to go about getting things vetted. I want to take this, send it to the trainer. He looks at the list. He okays it, sends it in. If wishy-washy, I'm not taking it. Something stinks to me in this situation. Something smells that maybe he wasn't responding to treatment. Maybe he wasn't getting better. And so he said, let's try something else. And I'm just guessing here. So, take it for what it's worth. But I've been there. I've been in that situation. I've seen guys in that situation. And when you're trying to rehab and you're trying to get better and your team's getting ready for the playoffs and you're not responding the way you want to, you start trying different things. And maybe outright, he didn't know it was steroids or HGH or something that helps you recover, this, that. But he knew enough to not vet it by his team. And this is a guy who's been injured. He's been around the block. So he knew enough to take it and to not tell anybody. That's the thing that's fishy.
That's my question to you is like, again, this is pure speculation. You don't have inside knowledge of this situation, but do you, like, how often will players take stuff without telling their team? Or is it that, like,
never,
one of the trainers is like, wink, wink, like, this, you just might get flagged. It's going to be your responsibility. I won't tell anyone. I'll never say that I gave it to you. But if you want it, here's the risk,
No, a lot of these guys have personal trainers, personal nutritionists that are outside of the team just because teams can't afford to have, personal guy for everybody, and everybody's body is different. I'm almost certain Ekblad probably has his own guy and his own team. He's just that good, and he's been around the league for that long, and he has that kind of money. So I'm sure he wasn't getting what he wanted, and his trainer or nutritionist or whoever is around him said, "Hey, this will help. What's in it? I don't know. You don't want to know, but it's good for you. It'll help you recover. You'll get back on the ice, and it'll be good." And maybe it'll all end up coming out in the wash, but he was pretty quick to accept responsibility and move on from this, which makes me think, like, you knew, man. You knew what you were doing. You knew. And so he conveniently misses the last 18 games of the season and the first 2 in the playoffs, so everything will be fine. But cheater, pumpkin eater.
This is part of his name forever, which is crazy. Even though the statement's a good one, he's accepting it. Like, yeah, he knew. And just to connect some dots here, not saying this is exactly 1-for-1, but the 20-game suspension is the exact same length handed to guys who were violated the PED, Performance Enhancing Drugs Program, including Sean Horkoff, Sean Hill, and Nate Schmidt. So there's some precedents here, and we all kind of know what happens. We'll move on, but that is part of his name forever.
And he's played internationally, and the rules in international hockey are so strict. I remember when everybody was leaning up for the 2010. I was on the Hawks at the time. They had Hossa, Kane, Taves, Keith, everybody. Half the team went to the Olympics. They had to stop taking Sudafed. They had to stop taking a bunch of stuff because the Olympics were on the horizon. Ekblad has played international hockey, so he knows the game. So to think that this was an accident, you got to be kidding yourself. This was meditated. He knew what he was doing. He was hoping he didn't get flagged. He got flagged. It still helped him. I'm guessing whatever he took benefited him. So at the end of the day, is it a good? Probably. Yeah. All right. Let's get on to this cheater. Speaking of cheaters, Alex Ovechkin scored another goal where there was no goalie in the net. And apparently that counts these days. So he is inching closer to the record. He's 9 goals away to this tainted record. Asterisks all over it. You probably love it, Tim. What is your take?
I love it for 2 reasons. First is that I think it's great and it's awesome that he's doing this. It's an incredible milestone, it's an incredible achievement. I think he's already the best goal scorer in NHL history, and now it's going to be official. It's amazing for that reason. It's also amazing just of how wrong you were and how wrong you continue to be. And it's cemented into the internet. We still get the this age like milk YouTube comments from 3 years ago when he predicted he'd never do it and not even come close. So it's great. It's just a double-edged sword for me. I love
Has he done it?
No, he's going to in 2 weeks.
So I'm still right. Do you see his teammates when he scores the empty netter? They don't even celebrate with him. They just go back to the bench. They're so annoyed by it. Like, again, Alex? Another one? How many does he have this year? 10, 11, 12?
I think it's like 8.
He's got quite a few.
Crazy.
8 is crazy. He's leading the league 100%. As soon as they get up a goal, Alex takes a break. He doesn't get on the ice. As soon as the other team pulls the goalie, he doesn't leave the ice. He stays out there for 3, 4, 7 minutes at a time sometimes because he wants that empty netter. And he doesn't even go in his own zone. He just sits in the neutral zone, waits for the chance, and he shoots it. There's no respect to the game.
You say so, man. It's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Here's the other thing with Ovi that's interesting is that he was interviewed by a Russian media outlet about re-signing when his contract ends next year. And he said, quote unquote, not likely or most likely not signed. So I think we've all kind of always known that he would wanted to end his career in Russia. He's from there. He's obviously got the high placed friends there. So he'll go and sign with whatever team is closest to his hometown, most likely, or Moscow, and finish his career there, which is not unprecedented. And I think it's really important to the country of Russia to have their best player ever come back and play there.
He is going to live right next to Putin, and he's going to have a huge mansion, and he's going to love it up. It's living it up with Russia. But I just researched this right now. Wayne Gretzky did not have any empty netters.
Wayne Gretzky had the second most empty netters in history.
Didn't have any. Who has the most?
Ovechkin.
Oh, my. Oh, there we go. All right, everybody. We'll leave it at that.
Gretzky has 56. And then Hossa is third with 40. Brad Marchand, 38 with fourth. It's crazy.
Scroll down, you get to my name with 1.
But it's there.
It's there. It ain't not there. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This was a longer episode, a lot to go over. We'll talk to you guys, Tim and I, on Thursday, and we got Darren McCarty on Friday. Have a good one, everybody. Cheers.
Ooh.